I've been getting ready to go out and thinking about this vlog as I've been getting ready to go out, and made a vlog about what this vlog's about, and have included information in it that probably isn't mine to share. So I'm going to delete that one, and you're going to get this one instead. So this is about speaking the language, and thinking about how important it is when you come here to have some French, just enough to be able to greet people, just enough to ask for directions, just enough to understand the directions you're given, enough to ask for help if you need it, and just a small amount, just a small smattering, will make a big difference to your experience here. What I know is that if you don't speak any French and you walk into a shop, or you walk into a restaurant, or you walk into an office and don't even attempt to greet people with a bonjour, you're going to get a very different reaction, a very different response to someone that says hello and then stumbles with a bit of French. And you'll find that people will, many people will come up with their smattering of English. What we discovered when we came here early on, when it was probably Mark's French is good, but it was more, it still is now and again apparent that we're not fluent French speakers. But what we discovered here were that many French people wanted to practice their English on us. So I can remember being in where was it, KFC in Poitiers years ago, back then, when I was like, oh, it's a KFC, got to stop, trying to place an order in French, which we were doing, but being replied to in English. And back then, 16 years ago, I couldn't have the two language. I couldn't compute the two languages in my head. It made it really difficult. But people wanted to practice their English, and that's fine. I haven't got a problem with that. We were in Trouville last month, and sat down and were given a menu. We were given a menu in English, and it totally confused me. Which is ridiculous, isn't it? But it did. It totally confused me. And when the waiter came back, I said, can I have a French menu, please? Because I just couldn't. I couldn't transfer back to an English menu in France. It just didn't work for me. But it's really important to have some language, because it's considered rude here if you don't do some of those little bits of politesse, like bonjour, monsieur, dame, when you walk into somewhere, and bonne journée, bon dimanche, bon samedi, bon fête, when you leave. It's just not, it's how there's a politesse, and you need to be able to manage it. And they are really small words, they're small phrases, it's not big. You need to be able to do it in order to move on to the next bit, and you'll find that people will be helpful. I do it in life, when I'm out, when I'm in town, when I'm in a shop, when I'm in the nurse's office, or wherever. But I sometimes forget to do it when I'm talking to somebody on Messenger. And you still need to use it. So, for instance, if I'm contacting my friend Laurence, I need to say, coucou Laurence, ça va? And she'll come back with ça va. And then you can go on to what it is that you want to talk about, what you want to ask. And sometimes I'm guilty of not doing that, because I forget, because I communicate with my family very differently. If I message Joe or my sister or my son, it will be with, did you tell me so-and-so, so-and-so? Will you be so-and-so? What was that? Without any of the, hello, how are you stuff. We tend to do that later in the conversation. So I sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes when I'm writing a message, I forget. but it is really important. It's and I like it. I really like it. It feels nice, that people do that, and you end with bisou and all of that. It's nice. Um, I was in I think I may have said this in a vlog years ago. Oh, years ago. Oh, listen to me. Um, I was in the nurse's office. Don't know how long ago it was now. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. Months and months and months and months and months ago, and I was in the waiting room, and there was a guy sitting talking to the receptionist in her office in English, just chatting away to her like she was another English person at the speed you would talk to another English person. I mean, it wasn't, to me, it wasn't fast, but it was a normal level of speaking that I felt was just unbelievable. One, why is he bending her ear in English? Because um, it wasn't about his medical issues or about his blood or about making an appointment. He was just chatting, waiting until it was his turn to go in and see the nurse. So it was just chatting, and I was just astonished that he lived in France and hadn't seemed to me to bother to learn the language. What I discovered later is that she understands English, and I said to her, "But I've been speaking French to you for 15 years." So there's a level of arrogance, I think, to come here and assume that that people will speak your language. A lot of French people speak English, but a lot of French people are not gonna offer that, and until you've been through all the polytest stuff. When we saw the estate agent here to come and look at houses, and he brought us to look at this one, we got several things wrong, and this is 16 years ago. We got several things wrong. One, we turned up at 12:20, which is like lunchtime. We would have spoken in French, bonjour, la la la, but he didn't. He wasn't very forthcoming with us, and I think he even said he didn't really speak English. we booked to look at, and I think he took us to look at maybe 3 houses. I definitely know that this was one of them, and there was another one further over. But by the time we'd got going, he was speaking English, and Mark said to him, "But you said you didn't speak English." And he sort of joked and said, "It depends on how much whiskey I've had." So, but I think there was a reluctance. I mean, estate agents probably are reluctant because they're not sure about how committed you are. A lot of holidaymakers will go and look at houses. I remember estate agents saying to us, "Bon vacances," and I said to Mark, because my French was really poor back then, that was 16 years ago, "Tell her we're not on bloody holiday," because that it really pissed me off that she was doing her job, but assuming that we were just nosy holidaymakers. Yeah, so I think there's an arrogance. There's the empire is gone now. The UK, the England, was it England or the UK or whatever, but probably England, had all this empire, and that's gone and shrunk. The Commonwealth has shrunk. America, whoever you conquered, that has shrunk probably. And to assume that people will speak English to you because they ought to is very wrong. It's incredibly arrogant. I'm just astonished when people. I wouldn't dream of turning up in say an Eastern European country without a smattering of language. I have no language skills for any Eastern European countries. I wouldn't know where to begin, and I certainly would make sure I had a few before I rocked up there. The comfort about being here was that obviously I had schoolgirl French, and obviously over the years we'd come and gone here, and so some of the small conversational words, sort of are normal, and you manage them. I think the difficulty for me when we came is that I assumed that my French would would get me by, but quite often, I could make that first step, and then the rest of the conversation would leave me behind because I had no idea what was going on. Um, and yet, there were things that I managed to do uh, somehow on my own in French that astonished me. It's like we were here for, um, I don't know, after a couple of months. I think Mark had come down to this house because we were buying this house, and he'd come down to meet the plumber. And it was moving day, and I was waiting for the removal men to come and move us again. And I had to go to the post office and redirect the mail, and I managed all of that. I don't think I'd manage that now, but I did then. It astonishes me. Yeah. So, really important to learn the language. I'm about to go off to spend an afternoon with French people. That will be complicated because Gail speaks English. She's an English professor at the head of English at the university in Poitiers. So that is always difficult because I don't have to immerse myself in the French, but at the same time, because I'd like to, there'll be the two languages coming at me, which will be difficult. But apart from that, it'll be a very enjoyable afternoon. I was up at 4:30 this morning making that Bakewell tart. I didn't need to get up at 4:30 this morning to make it, but I was laying awake, going through the steps of making the Bakewell tart. I thought I might as well just get up and make it, and then that bit of circular stuff going on in my head will disappear because I've done it. So I got up and made it. It didn't quite go to plan. I bought a new moule the other day. Like a flan tin with a bottom that pushes out. I thought, I'll be able to use that. It'll, be really la la la. Used that. And it wasn't until I was spreading the frangipane on that, and realised that Mary Berry's tin was smaller than my tin. So the frangipane is a little thinly spread, and the jam was coming up through, and it was difficult. I was dragging jam up as I was trying to spread the frangipane. I had to be careful about cooking because it wasn't a deep frangipane. It looked fine, and I've got up this morning and I've iced it. There was enough icing for it, and I can't get it out of the mould. I daren't get it out of the mould. I haven't got my cake. I've got a thing that I can put cakes in and then turn the top, sort of a globy top to hold the cake. It's too big for that, so I've got it. It was standing on a tray, a metal tray. I've put egg cups on each corner so that I can keep the foil lifted off the icing. I'm going to have to just take it really delicately over there. That's annoying. I'm sure it will taste fine, and that's all that matters really, isn't it? But it didn't quite go to flan. I must go to flan. It didn't go to flan. I need to buy myself a smaller moule. If I make it another time, I wouldn't. I mean, I don't make cakes. Very rarely do I make cakes. It's only if I'm offering cake to visitors, or like we're going over there and I felt I should take something over there, but I don't really make cakes at home because we eat them and they're not good for us. So I find that I get a bit envious of people that make cakes a lot, because I think I would. Well, especially if we had eggs. We haven't got any eggs. Well, I have got eggs, but ones I bought. I would make cakes a lot, but it obviously they're not good for us. And I get really envious of people that can make cakes and eat them and not have to think about all the sugar, because it's the sugar and the flour, all the sugar and the flour. The butter isn't really an issue, but it's the sugar and the flour that causes the issues, I think. But so I really envy people, when they've made lovely cakes, and I think I would be a cake maker were I thin. So anyway, this is my second vlog of this subject, and There may be more when I have more. Well, yeah, that's it. That is it. Bon dimanche.